The one feature that I can share with you, and I encourage all of you to go ahead and if you have Amazon Prime, watch it, is a series, nature documentary series called Plants Behaving Badly. And the first episode is called Murder and Mayhem, narrated by no other than David Attenborough. And he talks about all of these carnivorous plants with beautiful photography highlighting their characteristics and their traps. For now, I always like to start at the beginning, and that is about 30 to 40 million years ago with the first carnivorous plants on Earth. The very first carnivorous plants that we know of looked like sundews. It looked very much, and here is the oldest carnivorous plant fossil that we have a record, which looks remarkably like a modern day carnivorous plant from the family Rhodidulaceae. You can say that one again. And the genus type Rhodidula. So this fossil was found on an amber mine near Kaliningrad, Russia. And this genus is characteristic for having this form, which have these elongated leaves covered by trichomes. At the very tip of each one of those trichomes, which is a fancy word for plant hair, we have a little bit of sweet nectar. That sweet nectar will attract insects looking for a sugary meal, and the plant will take benefit from them. However, the plant doesn't actually eat the insect, but depends on the predator's poop to get the nutrients from. The predator is a type of beetle that will, a type of assassin bug that will come, pierce the exoskeleton of the insect, suck on its insides, and then when it's good and done, it will poop the waste, which is what then Rhodidula will utilize to extract nitrogen and phosphates from. So it's a very tight symbiotic relationship between the assassin bug and the plant. And it looks like it has been going on for millions of years. Now, the amber from the fossil suggests that these plants evolved in a coastal area with mixed forest right up to the coast, and it had open patch for herbaceous or shorter plants. Now, those environments are very harsh conditions because not only is there a high salinity, but there's a lot of water. So any type of nutrients that are in that areas are hard to extract from a land plant standpoint. I was also looking for the literature of when was it that we first knew about carnivorous plants. And most people or most literature will cite Darwin and its publication of insectivorous plants in 1875. this is a book that is available freely, so you can download it from Apple Books, but also you can Google it, and there are a couple other sources where you can get the ebook from. And when you read his Darwin's records of carnivorous plants, you're gonna find that there were people studying this phenomena from 1782. So almost 100 years before Darwin placed that publication of insectivorous plants, there was already people looking at these plants. So Dr. Mild publishes also some accounts of insectivorous plants, to use the historical term. However, don't tell anybody, but there was a teeny tiny bit of drama in the insectivorous plant world, because back then there wasn't as much science and as much knowledge as we have right now. So Mr. Darwin is, it writes in his efforts that the works of people before 1852 were small and unimportant. And it's not, according to Darwin, until Dr. Nietzsche in 1860 that he sees contribution to the carnivorous plant world that is significant for Darwin. I mean, the arrogance, come on. What were then these small and unimportant papers that Darwin is talking about? Well, the small and unimportant papers were not other but the descriptions of Drosera species known to men until then. So it's the cataloging of all the species. And do you know who was doing some of that cataloging? None other than Linnaeus. So Darwin is referring to some of Linnaeus' works as small and unimportant. Jesus Christ, the drama. But anyway, so there was also a debate going on between classifications of species, much like we have today, between morphology and DNA. They were trying to measure the length of a leaf to be able to say if it's Drosera longifolia, which is this sundew that you see right here, or Drosera intermedia, which has a shorter leaf. So I want you to transport yourself to that time in your mind. They didn't have internet, they didn't have photographs, so all that they could do is place these illustrations and these drawings to, and of course, dried herbarium specimens to try to figure out a way to classify the different species that we have. Thankfully, on the modern world, we have it much easier, which is take a photograph, compare the two, send it through internet, not through snail mail, and what a debate that probably took years for them can take us just a matter of hours or minutes. Just to give a closing bow to this little piece of drama, Haynes won over the debate with Linnaeus, and then this is what we know as those species today. So yeah. Now back to Darwin. Out of the scientists of that time, Darwin is the one scientist that takes the most time to not only offer a taxonomic classification to these species, but also to look for what mechanism are these plants utilizing to capture their prey. And he fell so in love with sundews or the genus Drosera that he made his wife a little bit jealous, because he goes to say that he cares more about Drosera than the origin of all species in the world. We know Darwin as the father of the origin of species, as the father of evolution as we know it today. But Darwin himself had a profound love for carnivorous plants. So he devotes most of his time to figure out what are the mechanisms behind the opening and closing of the leaves in the Venus flytrap. What is that is responsible for that movement? As many people know, plants do not move in the sense of how animals move, but they do exhibit some things that we can recognize as movement. So the opening and closing of the leaves in a Venus flytrap is what we could call a true movement. The way that plants seem to turn towards the light or grow towards the light is phototropism, and that is not true movement, but directed growth. We also see that plants can't curl around stems and objects, and that is not true movement either. That is also directed growth, but instead of being triggered by the light differential in the environment, it is triggered by chemical differentials. And if you watch the plants behaving badly, you're gonna learn all about that too. And finally, we have the gravitropism, and that is also directed growth, but in that particular sense, we're talking about the gravity, or we're talking about gravity being that driving force behind that growth. So it is only in these Venus flytraps that we can see true movement, or it is only in the carnivorous plants that we are seeing that true movement of the leaves, that they're able to close or curl the trichomes around the insect. So Darwin really has a mind-blowing movement when he discovers carnivorous plants. And then he tries different experiments to investigate the characters. For example, how do they absorb their food? If the roots are in a wet environment all the time, then how are they getting the nutrients? What are the chemical triggers? How long does it take to absorb the nutrients once they have captured their prey? And what is the signaling mechanism that triggers movement. So I also want to highlight the fact that while I'm researching and I am learning all about these experiments, I can't help but think that in a way, scientists end up being these children that never lost that curiosity. If you think about it, if you put yourself in that position, you're looking at a plant that is completely different from anything that was known at the moment. And Darwin feels compelled to learn everything that he can think of about these plants because it's so new, it's so exciting. Come on, they can move and they eat. It's a plant that eats. So he has that childlike curiosity to explore and learn everything he can. In the state of Maryland, thanks to reports for the from the Maryland Biodiversity Project, we know that we have 3 types of carnivorous plants in the state. And in here, I have color-coded the table to the border of the images. So you can see that in the first 4, they are pitcher plants. So the mechanism is a pitfall. It's basically a leaf that has curled itself and made a hole where insects are attracted to it, but the hairs or trichomes are pointing downwards. So once they get to this point, they cannot escape and they will fall down into the cavity and be consumed by the plant. The most numerous of the species that we have here in Maryland are what we know as the bladderworts. So all these species belong to this particular type of trap, which is very similar to what the Venus flytrap is. It has a trap mechanism that is triggered and closes to get the prey. And then, oh, I'm sorry. These belongs to here. So the sundews are these right here. Sorry about that. I got confused by the purples. So the pinkish purple are the sundews, which is this plant right here. And this plant, what it does is attracts the insects with the sugary deposits at the top of the trichomes. The insect will get close, stand on those trichomes, and then it's like a glue because not only is it very sweet, but it's very sticky. And the more that the insect struggles, the more that it will be trapped in that slimy, sticky substance. And a little bit later, we'll talk more about that. The trapping mechanism and the sundew mechanism are the two families or the 2 mechanisms that are related. So in my head, I see the Venus flytraps as a sundew that got tired of spiders eating their prey. And it decided to, no, you're not gonna get it. I'm just gonna trap it until I can eat it. Same with this type of mechanism. It's a trap. It will close around its prey and then allow the juices to digest those nutrients. I want to stop right here and see if I have any questions in the chat box. Yes, Carrie, spiders need food too, but they can trap their own. They don't need to go stealing my sundews food. But it's very common that spiders will set shop or set their webbing close to carnivorous plants, because usually carnivorous plants take time to they take time to trap their food, and they take time to digest. So a spider moves much more quicker. It's also why spiders will get close to the lights at night, because they know that there's a neon sign attracting the insects. So they will capitalize on that. Karen asks us if Venus flytraps are not in Maryland list, and where are they native to? Well, Venus flytraps are native to the Carolinas, North Carolina and South Carolina, and they're not native to Maryland and have not been reported being in the wild in Maryland. The Venus flytrap is not a type of sundew. It's different altogether. However, it is a descendant of the sundew. Both sundews and flytraps have a common ancestor in phylogenetics. The Venus flytrap genus is Dionea musipola. Let me go back so we can see that. This genus has changed. It's Dionea right now. Oh yeah, it's just, but yeah, this is the genus Dionea musipola, and that's the name of a Venus flytrap. So it is a different genus altogether. Notice here that the genus for the sundews is the genus Drosera. So all of these types of carnivorous plants that are very unique, where can we find them? And how did it come to be that we have plants that eat other insects? But usually they are present in environments that have wet, boggy, and acidic soils. Now, acidic soils are very tough because usually the nutrients that the plants get or the plants need are of a positive charge. Just think about calcium, sodium, magnesium. They all have a positive charge. But if you have acidic, you have a lot of ions that are interfering with that process. So it's very difficult for the plant to absorb those nutrients that it needs. And whatever nutrients that are there get leached out really quickly. All plants need the minerals to be in most plants need the nutrients to be in an aqueous form. They need to be soluble in water. But if the soil it's already waterbogged or waterlogged, then all the nutrients are going to be leaching out, and there's not going to be enough time for the plant to absorb those. So the main source of nitrogen, it's going to be trapping. Here at home, and at home I mean in North America, we can see those plants present in the wild in coastal states from Alabama to North Carolina, Although pitcher plants are able to survive colder climates, like what we have here in Maryland. There are very few sundew species that can survive here, but we have 4. And they need the humidity levels in their environment to be really close to 100% all year long. Or while they are actively growing. In the state of dormancy, then it's not as crucial. This picture that you have right here, I was able to take it in a visit that I went to North Carolina, in Wilmington, North Carolina, at the Stanley Reeder Carnivorous Plant Garden. It is small in size, but the diversity of that garden is incredible. So if you have a chance to drive down to North Carolina when this craziness is over, I encourage you to take a drive down there, especially during spring and fall months, to see how beautiful these plants can be in the wild. So there are 4 main types of carnivorous plants, and it wasn't until last year that I learned about the 4. I always thought that there were only 3, but there is an extra one. We have a bonus. So these plants are either lobster pot traps, and this is a heliconius type of structure, means it goes in a spiral. This is a plant that has lost its roots, and now it just grows leaves on top and on the bottom. The leaves on top photosynthesize, the leaves at the bottom, they do the trapping. The pitfall type of trap is what we call pitcher plants. All plants in the genus Nepenthes or Sarracenia, which is the genus native to Maryland. The snap trap, which is Dionea, otherwise called Venus flytrap, but other plants in this type of capture are those that are the bladderworts, the aquatic carnivorous plants. And of course, one of the most pretty macro photography producing plants, the sundews, and it's just incredible the way they catch the light in each one of those droplets. So contrary to what we would think, the carnivorous plants are not monophyletic, meaning that they are not related to each other. The only exception is the Venus flytrap and the Drosera or sundews. The rest of the genuses present in the carnivorous plant type are diverse, and they exhibit a convergent evolution, meaning that plants that are not related evolve a morphology that points towards the same type. So it's a common example of that would be the wings in bats and the wings in birds. They do not have a close common ancestor, but they both have wings. They just have different mechanisms of evolving towards the same strategy. I think I saw something arrive. So Charlotte asks us if I've been to Dolly Suds in Canaan Valley of West Virginia. No, I have not, but let me point it into my bucket list. And it's a very unique bug environment with some beautiful sundews. Again, bucket list. I gotta go. Thank you for sharing that. And what is the trapping mechanism? Diana asks us, what is the trapping mechanism for the lobster pot trap? What is the prey found underground? Yes, the prey is found underground, and I'm gonna wait to answer this question because I have a video that explains everything about it. Carrie, you gotta go with me. So, lobster pot trap, the miracle of the carnivorous plants, at least from me, from my point of view. These plants are in the genus Genlycia. They are rare, small, and semi-aquatic. They need that really heavily bogged environment to thrive. They have a subterranean spiraling lobster traps. So it's this thing that you have here. It's a leaf that has curled upon itself to make a tunnel. And these are found in nutrient poor, again, like every other carnivorous plants, because if it's not broken, why fix it? But this genus in particular is found in tropical regions of Africa, Madagascar, Central and South America. I'm just, for the sake of time, I'm only going to play one of these videos for you. So hang tight. Okay, stop this.
Genlycia is a genus of semi-aquatic carnivorous plants, with a particular feature that characterizes it. During the evolution process, it completely lost its roots, and the visible apogeal organs are in fact modified leaves forming traps. These plants generates two different types of leaves, a feature known under the name of heterophyte. Photosynthetic leaves on the surface of the ground, and a modified leaf called rhizophyll, which plays both typical functions of roots, such as anchoring the plant to the soil, but also capturing small soil organisms. The rhizophyll is a tubular, subterranean, usually without chlorophyll leaf, with positively geotrophic growth. The rhizophyll is divided in several regions: a stalk that connects a leaf to the stem, and a hollow bulge called vesicle or digestive chamber. The vesicle continues with a tubular neck that splits into two helically twisted arms. Perhaps this carnivorous plant captures the widest range of prey, more than any other one, going from unicellular organisms like protozoa and algae to invertebrates such as mites, crustaceans, and annelids. Prey enter the tract through a series of small openings arranged in a helical direction along the trap arms. An annelid has decided to sacrifice itself to give us a practical demonstration, showing us for the first time on video the capture of a prey by ingenious.
Thank you. I did not add your video. Thank you. You can always switch it on.
They can no longer escape and get trapped in a series of funnel-shaped trichomes arranged in rings, moving unidirectionally towards the vesicle, in which they will be digested by the plant. The basic trapping principle of this carnivorous plant, hypothesized for the first time by Charles Darwin, reminds of a lobster or eel trap. We can have a better understanding of the internal cavity of the trap and the movement of the organism captured in it by cutting the trap at the top before the organism arrives to the vesicle. By doing this and waiting for some time, it is possible to observe its escape from the trap, rewarding it for its courage.
Okay. So, I see some questions in the chat. Yes, nature is quite fascinating. And although Darwin did study Genlycia, it wasn't until a couple years ago that I knew that that genus and that type of trapping ever even existed. Yep. So I'm gonna share the PowerPoint again. This PowerPoint will be available to you after the presentation as well, so you can enjoy the second video and subsequent videos that I have placed here for your viewing pleasure. The next type of trapping mechanism that I want to talk about is the pitfall trap. And there are many genuses in this type of trapping mechanism. Some of them are Brocchinia, Catopsis, Paepalanthus, Nepenthes is this type of trap. Sarracenia is the one that we have here in Maryland. Some of these pitfall type of traps, like the taste of meat, in Borneo, they have found the biggest type of pitcher plants, and those can eat mice and rats. But there's another variant of the pitfall traps that don't really like meat, but love to get some poop. And that is the case of one of our pitcher plants, Sarracenia purpurea, pictured here in green. That, that picture has not only the plant with the hairs pointing downward, but the mosquito that breeds within the water in that trap, and I can't pronounce that genus, but it's W. smithi. The species is smithi. The genus starts with W, Winona, something like that. But what, I'm sorry? Okay. But what the pitcher plant does is to create an environment where these mosquitoes can thrive. They will lay eggs, and have the larvae swimming in this pool of water and enzymes, and the poop of the larvae will be used as a nutrient for the plant. The largest pitcher plant in the world is a Nepenthes, and is this type of plant is Nepenthes raja. And what that plant does is generate nectar in the top or the flap of the trap. That will be nectar of a waxy consistency, loads of sugar, but it also has a bit of a compound that provokes the shrew to poop on the pitcher. And when the shrew poops, the pitcher then will enjoy that meal full with nitrogen and phosphate necessary for its growth. Again, I have placed in here a link for you to see that process, which can be very interesting. Some other interesting facts. Here you're seeing the Nepenthes plant, and the pitchers or the traps are at the very tip of the leaves. So you have a plant that may look a little bit like an orchid leaf, but that leaf has an elongated tip that then has a cavity with all the enzymes in the liquid down here. The insects or any animal that approaches will be standing here trying to lap at the sugary deposits over here at the top. These have channels that are pointing downwards, and in here there would be some trichomes also pointing downwards. So once you fall into the trap, there's no way they can come out, unless there are some mutualistic symbiosis, like the case of the shrew, that will not fall into the trap and just poop for the plant's pleasure. These are not monophyletics. They are the perfect examples of convergent evolution. And I just want to share with you something that I found that blew my mind, because I grew up in Puerto Rico eating star fruit. This is a very, very pretty fruit found in tropical genus, in tropical regions. And while I was doing research last year to update my knowledge for this talk, I found out that this species of pitcher plant found in Australia, it's more closely related to the star fruit than it is to a Nepenthes plant, although they share some common characteristics. I couldn't believe it, but that is convergent evolution for you guys. And Sarracenia, which is this one right here, has representatives that are here in Maryland. Let me see. I saw something arrive. Yes. So another type of trap is the type of a snap trap. And those are Dioanea, which is the Venus flytrap, and Utricularia. And Utricularia are the bladderworts. That is the type of trap that also exhibits through movement, but these instead are aquatic. So if you've ever seen a Venus flytrap, those are the snap trap. It's a fast movement, usually controlled by target pressure and calcium ions. And this is the plant that inspired the Little Shop of Horrors movie. They also are found in boggy and sandy environments. And I have another video because I'm sure very little people have seen the mechanism of a bladderwort. So I'm gonna stop the share of the PowerPoint and share the video instead.
This marsh seems quiet, but terrible things take place underwater. Stagnant waters are poor in nutrients. Once there, you've got to live by your wits. What use could these little bugs be? Stuck to bladderwort's roots. This is a bladderwort's leaf. It does the plants a favor. But let's leave water for a more comfortable place and sample a fragment carrying such small bladder-shaped leaves. High-speed camera is needed because, oops, even slowed down 10 times, it remains quick. Let's slow down much more. The prey comes closer and which only lasted 1 millisecond. This small freshwater crustacean is still moving, but the digestive enzymes of the plants are already at work. In a few hours, only its skeleton will be left, and the plant will be enjoying its precious nutrients. Well, enjoying, not always. How does it work? Small glands puncture to the outside, which creates the depression inside. Trap needs around 1 hour to set. Like in a bow, elastic energy is stored in the deformed material until both sides almost touch. Here it is. The trap is set, ready to catch its prey. Just touch its sensitive hairs and it reacts. This is the fastest known underwater trap. Door is the key. When depression inside the bladder is important enough, even the smallest perturbation can trigger inversion. Here also, the simulation helps understanding the deformation of the door. It first inverts its curvature, and as soon as the doorstep is passed, water flows in the underpressurized bladder, which forces a wide opening. It's like with this rubber puppet toy. Curvature inversions can generate very swift movements. Once water has flown into the bladder, the door rolls its mold back to outward curvature. Then the trap is watertight again. Who is the next victim?
I see a picture, comment on the chat box that asks us, so it takes an hour to reset itself after a meal. It depends on the species. For the bladderworts, it might. For the Venus flytraps, it takes 10 days from the moment that the trap was closed until that trap will open again and release its prey. And the type of movement that exhibits is called Tigmonasti. And Mimosa pudica, it's another plant that it's not a carnivorous plant, but it also exhibits this mechanism. Venus flytraps and bladderworts have that mechanism. And it's a chemical balance between water or turgid pressure and calcium ions, which allows these leaves to open and close. So in the diagram to the right, you'll be able to see a leaf that is completely turgid, both the top of the leaf and the bottom of the leaf. The leaves has some trichomes on top of it in the case of a Venus flytrap that will trigger that differential in ions. So the plant will change the turgidity or the turgor pressure on the bottom of the leaf, making it even more so, and exchanging some of the water from the top of the leaf to the bottom to allow contraction on the inside and expansion on the outside. When that happens, then the morphology changes and the plant is able to close its leaf. That happens oh so quickly. It can happen in a fraction of a second, and it has to, because the prey that these plants are after moves rather quickly. If you have ever tried to take a picture of a tiger beetle, you know exactly what I mean. Now, I encourage you to watch the plants behaving badly, and right at the 14-minute mark, you'll be able to see that trigger mechanism. Here are the hairs that I was talking about, or the trichomes. And to trigger this plant, you will need to touch 2 of those within a 20-second period. So not only are these plants capable of movement, but they can track time. So it's a really cool mechanism. And usually for the kids that I work with, it just blows their mind. And so does mine. And speaking about kiddos, one of the things that we enjoy the most is sharing the love for these carnivorous plants with our kids during summer camps. Right now, we have the nature photography camp deals with them, but also in the second part of July and August, we will have, if everything goes well, in-person camps where we will finally be able to share again our love for nature. And this type of experience is something that I do because it's not only the plants that they get exposed to, but we also take our campers down to the meadow so they can capture insects and they can observe the environment, how much light, how much humidity is in the air, so they get a full experience to observe nature in every aspect. Once we have caught enough insects, then we all come together and we decide which insects are going to be fed and which insects are going to be released. Usually insects that are in dangerous numbers or that are being threatened get released. Things like fireflies or spiders, because they have a very important role to do in nature. they get automatically released. Bees, we don't even capture because we also want to allow kids to have that sense of stewardship and to understand that these are very important organisms. But anything that is invasive or we have in very high numbers and has the appropriate size to be fed will be fed to the Venus flytrap in here. So it's very fun to be able to see nature through their eyes. In here, I have placed more resources for you so that you will have an opportunity to understand more about each one of the trapping mechanisms. And I want also to thank you for your attention today. I wanted to finish the PowerPoint presentation a little earlier so we can get to see the live plants that we have. If you like this type of content, don't forget to go to our website, anshome.org/events calendar. And in there, you will find plenty more of our education opportunities. Let it be Naturalist Hour or any other activities that we have in scheduled for you. Thank you so much. And I would like to open the floor for some questions right now.
Can I ask a question, Serenella?
Yeah, sure.
Great. I'm sorry. I wrote down a couple questions. Hi, everybody. I'm Anna. You kept talking about trichomes, and I think those are from the sundews. And are those the sticky parts? I just wasn't sure what the trichome was.
Oh, sure. Sorry if I didn't clarify that. But trichomes is just a fancy word to say plant hair. So wherever you see a structure that looks like a hair in a plant, that's a trichome.
Awesome. Second question I have is when you were talking about the example of the mice and the poop, I think I just wanted to get a little bit of clarification. In that example, were you showing that sometimes the plant doesn't eat the mouse, but it does something to the mouse to make it poop, so at least gets the fertilizer?
Yeah.
Is that what you were saying?
Yeah. So in the tap or the lid of the pitcher plant, that underside is covered with sugary wax. And that sugary wax also has laxative, which is the word that I've been trying to remember all day. I finally remembered. So it has sugar, but it also had laxative. So it will prompt the mouse or the shrew to poop in the pitcher.
And will it still eat the mouse? Or is
No.
it like, it won't? Okay, got it.
Usually, and that is Nepenthes raja, I think. But that example of the pitcher and the shrew, it's a symbiotic relationship. So both the shrew has evolved with the plant, and the plant it doesn't fall. Now there might be other species that do fall, but not that specific shrew.
Okay, I have one last question. Sorry for all the questions. I was really fascinated by the lobster pot trap thing that you mentioned. I've never heard of that before. And you were saying it didn't have roots, and you may not know the answer to this, and I'll go research it, but I just wondered when you were looking it up. If it doesn't have roots, is it those subterranean leaves that are keeping it set? Like what's holding it to the ground if it doesn't have roots?
Correct. So instead of roots, those epigenous leaves, which is the scientific term for it, serve a dual purpose. They serve as trapping mechanism, but also serve as anchorage.
Cool, awesome. Thank you. That's all my questions.
I see in the chat that Christine asks us if we feed stink bugs. Yes, we do. If we find and trap stink bugs, we will feed them to the pitchers, not to the Venus flytrap because they're too big, but the pitchers will get it. Usually Sarracenia purpurea will get those. Thank you, Christine. Any other questions? Anna Anders, my family and I really enjoyed the presentation. Thank you. Thank you, Anna. Thank you, Anna's family. I'm really excited that you're here, and I'm really thankful for your time. So if that is all, without further ado, I present you, and let me get rid of the virtual background just because. So I present to you my Venus flytrap Sarracenia purpurea and sundew terrarium. So these guys right here, this is a terrarium that has been with me about 4 to 5 years already. And although usually you should let the carnivorous plants have a period of dormancy, I don't allow mine to have it. I just have them under grow light for the winter months, and I just have them inside. And they're doing just fine. This is a new leaf. That is a new leaf. So this plant has been 4 years in this terrarium, and this plant is Sarracenia purpurea. That is one of the pitcher plants that is found naturally in Maryland. Over here, I don't know if you can see it. Yeah, you can. This is the flower of the Venus flytrap. Right now, it's really happy and sending blooms everywhere. Some of those blooms have already been spent, and I kind of pollinize them myself. I usually, when I have more than one bloom next to each other, I will take the flowers and put them right on top of each other and circle so they can pollinate. I don't like the paintbrush technique, so I'll just do that. And when they are spent like this, I'll take them and kind of break it apart in another terrarium. So I have baby fly traps growing in different terrariums right now. So this is one. And then, whoops, sorry. The other that I wanted to show you is Sarracenia. These I have had for maybe 2 years. And this Sarracenia is a hybrid. It's a cross between Sarracenia flava and Leucophila. And I wish you could see it, but this pitcher leaf has one of those thieves. Let me see. So right around here, it's out. Okay, so right around here, there is a webbing and a little spider living in that web. I'm so sorry I don't have a macro to show, but trust me, there's a spider there. Also in this terrarium, there are 2 species of sundews. Let me see. Let me adjust that. So there's a sundew right there. This is Drosera spatularia. And then this is Drosera capillaris. Right now, they don't have those nectary secretions because they were outside in the rain yesterday. So, and I have gone through a couple of different feeding mechanisms. I have a colony of pill bugs on yet another terrarium. I have terrarium city in my living room right now. One table, many terrariums. Bear with me, it's just, my husband allows me to do it, so I don't care. But in there, I have a couple species of pill bugs growing because I will use them to feed the pitcher plant and also the Venus flytrap. However, because I know I was going to give demonstrations, I got the lazy man option. The Carnivorous Plant Nursery in Maryland is starting to sell these freeze-dried bloodworms. And that is a really easy way to feed the plants because there's nothing crawling. You don't have to go looking for the prey. You don't have to feed the prey to keep it alive like I do. And you just take a couple of them and you just put it inside of the pitcher. And voila! If you want to feed the Venus flytrap, and I hope to God that you can see it because I will do it. Okay, bear with me. Are you able to see the Venus flytrap? The Venus flytraps are down here. Can you see them?
Yep, we can see them.
Okay, so you can take a few bloodworms and I'm gonna go into the mouth. And hey, buddy. Do you see it close?
Yes.
Good. So sometimes some of the prey will not go in, and that's okay. But most of the prey has to go inside. Okay. So I'm gonna see if I can detect another big mouth. Okay. Can you see that one? Can you see the tip of my tweezers?
Yep.
Yep.
Okay. So the tip of my tweezers are right on top of another hungry mouth. Do you see it?
Yep.
Okay. So I'm gonna feed that one. Going once, going twice. Come on. Oh, I fed two at the same time. Were you able to see that?
I think so.
Yes.
Okay. So there. So these are my pets. If I wanted to feed sundew, and these ones right here, this one is not, but the one, a ver, let's see if we can rotate so you can see better. Okay.
Serenella, do you name these plants?
No, I don't. I don't. Okay, can you see the tip of my tweezers again?
Yes.
Okay, so these are the sundews right by the tip, and again, I will get a couple of bloodworms and I will put them there. And as you can see, the sundews don't really react very quickly. So then you can see how it will be really easy for a spider to come and take the prey away. And still the hard work that this sundew has put into attracting and trapping the prey. So again, it's very easy to see how Venus flytraps have evolved as a better mechanism for trapping and keeping their prey.
Serenella, can you mention sort of the percentage of like for the Venus flytrap, for example, we've discussed this before, like there's how many bugs they need versus like regular water or nutrients or their diet?
So they could survive without insects for a while. These guys, or the Carnivorous Plant Nursery Manager recommends that you feed carnivorous plants only once a month. It doesn't take much. They do need to be in waterlogged environment all the time. So these glass terrariums, for example, they don't have any holes in them. I use only rainwater. It's very important that the water has no minerals and the least amount of pollution and things like that. So only distilled water or rainwater. So that's why I installed a rain barrel at home, because I needed to not be going to the supermarket every week. So they do take a little bit of extra care as far as that is concerned. And I have them under a grow light. So because they are typically on full sun, warm environments. Mm-hmm. So they need to have that direct sunlight all the time. So when I have them indoors, I have them under a grow light. Now that it's summer, I have taken them out. These two are just visiting.
And obviously several species can coexist. Like it's okay to have this one.
Actually, it's even better. The terrariums that I have, all of them have different species. And I prefer it that way because Serracinia, like I mentioned, will breed mosquitoes. But if I have so many sundews around them, do you think they'll survive? So it is a very close ecosystem where the Serracinia creates the mosquitoes that feeds the sundews. It's only when I have them inside that I have to supplement their diet. But when they are outside, they are fully capable of taking care of themselves. They only need the sun and water from the rain.
Great, thank you.
No problem, Janine. Yes, they are fly traps that are blooming. The white flowers are the blooms of the fly trap. Then we have this guy and this little structure right here. That is the inflorescence of the sundew. So they are blooming. The sundews do really well. I have several babies right now, and I do the same thing. These guys, they pollinate themselves. They do have a pollinator. I just never seen it. And when the flower is spent, I just go and give a little friction inside of the terrarium. So any seed will fall inside of the terrarium and germinate inside. And then when they get big enough, I transplant in a new terrarium. Janine, pitches on the phone. Yes, so pitcher sundews and fly traps will grow with each other in the wild. So we are trying to replicate a little bit of their conditions. They are plants that are really good together because Sericenia will feed them all. But also in these terrariums, I have purposely put moss. And that is not something that will be common in all of the environments, but it's really good because any nutrients or minerals that remain in the water that they get will be taken up by the moss before they get a chance to damage the roots of the carnivorous plants. So it's always good to have a couple of plants that will need those, like this bog grass right here, and the moss, because they will absorb those minerals that inevitably will be there and end up protecting the others. Any other questions? All right. Thank you very much. Thank you for spending your night with us. This has been truly a pleasure to be able to play with you a little bit.